Hello, welcome along to the show. This is the Fun Kids Science Weekly, and my name's Dan. This is the only show that uncovers all the secrets lurking inside the solar system. Now, on the show this week, we'll talk about some spacecraft that's been floating through the solar system for over 40 years. They've sent some pictures back. We'll talk about them a little bit later on. Also, we'll take a look at a snake that I don't think we've actually ever spoken about before, which is baffling. It needs to be on our Dangerous Dan list because it's one of the most deadly beasts in the world. And I've got some of your questions to answer to. Today, they're all about skin and bones. Before we get to that, let's dive inside the Earth to see how it's made.
How's it made?
Oh, hello, Sir Sidney McSprocket here. I've been in action capturing facts all about manufacturing. It's for this rather splendid stipendiary compendium I'm compiling. You just ask it how something is made, and it'll oblige with a fulsome explanation. Now, we all love a good board game, but you'd be stuck without a dice. These handy items help us determine the next move and come in a multitude of colours, shapes and sizes. So, let's find out how dice are made.
Step 1.
The first step is to choose the material. Now, although you can get dice in all sorts of materials, from fluffy fabric to wood, the sort we use for board games are made of a tough plastic. It has to be easy to mould and be coloured, but hard enough to withstand a lot of rolling. The material used is frequently an epoxy or acrylic.
Step 2.
Granules of the tough plastic are mixed with coloured granules, and the whole lot is melted, often over a long screw which turns inside a cylinder. This keeps the mix moving.
Step 3.
The molten plastic is injected into tiny moulds, hollow presses the size and shape of the dice. The moulds even include the dips for the dots on each side.
Step 4.
Now, whilst the dice may be one colour, the dots will need to be a different colour. Say white, so you can see the number easily. The white paint is painted over the whole dice, which are then tumbled in a machine with an abrasive. So only the paint remaining is inside the dips for the dots. Hey, clever, eh?
Step 5.
After a good polish, the dice will be thoroughly tested to make sure they are correctly weighted and that each side is equal. Else you might find it hard to roll that 6 you needed. And then the dice are ready to roll. Now, I must get on, but come back soon and find out more about manufacturing with my splendid stipendiary compendium.
How's it made? With support from the Royal Commission for the 1851 exhibition. Find out more at funkidslive.com.
Right, let's crack on with my favourite part of the show, when I figure out the answers to your questions. If it's something sciencey, if you just can't work out the answer, let me know. I will become a science Sherlock. I'll do all the work for you. If I can't do it, I'll get on like a proper professor who can explain it inside out and back to front. If you've got a question, you need to leave it for me as a review on Apple Podcasts for the Fun Kids Science Weekly. That's what Kira has done. She's on the other side of the planet to where I am right now. She's in Australia, and she asks, what makes our skin? Well, skin is an organ, Kira, just like the heart and the lungs and the liver. It actually makes about 16% of your body weight, and there are two main layers to the skin. You've got the epidermis, which is the outer layer, and that is a waterproof barrier, and it creates skin tone as well. Beneath that, you've got the dermis, which contains tough tissues. You've got hair follicles in there as well, and also the sweat glands that help you perspire. And then beneath that, you've got another layer, not one of the main ones, but still pretty important. It's the hypodermis. That's made of fat and connective tissue. Now, skin, all of those layers are mostly made of different proteins. You've got keratin, and they're in nails and in hair as well. Brilliant at remaking themselves, those cells. You've also got collagen and elastin, and they're really stretchy, which is good for skin. Those are what the cells in the skin make up, all the different types of proteins that are in your skin. Thank you so much for that, Kira. And this is from Gillian from San Antonio. She's a regular on the show. I love this, by the way, that you're kind of getting around the rules that they've got. So you're leaving reviews under loads of different names so you can keep asking me questions. If you've already sent one in and you want me to answer another one, by all means, you can do that. It's fine. Gillian asks, how do the fresh blood cells leave the bone once they're made? Now, this is it comes from something we spoke about last week on the show when we were talking about bones. In the middle of your bones, you've got bone marrow, and that's where you make a lot of your blood. Now, inside the bone, there is a dense network of blood vessels, Gillian. You've got it inside, and you've got it on the outside too, and that's why when bone fractures, sometimes it can cause serious bleeding. And the blood cells leave the bone marrow once they are made through these blood vessels, and then they enter into your body. So thank you so much for that, Gillian. I could do with some more questions, by the way. They're getting a little bit too easy, if I'm being honest. Give me a really hard one to figure out. Turn me into a proper sciencey Sherlock. You can leave me your question as a review for the Fun Kids Science Weekly over on Apple Podcasts. It's the Fun Kids Science Weekly. Now, this week, we're going to talk about another way that you can learn loads more about the things that we discuss in these shows. Because the Week Junior's Science and Nature magazine is out right now. We've got the editor, Dan Green, on the line. Hey, Dan.
Hi there.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm staring at a copy of November's issue. It's got a big bust of Tutankhamun on the front. It says, discovering the terrifying tricks of mummy makers. We've kind of talked about this a bit on our show, actually, recently. Tell me about what you've learned as the editor of Science and Nature about mummification.
Well, I was just really amazed by this article. It really sort of opened up a whole new world for me about how cultures around the world have developed dead clever ways to preserve human bodies. And one of the things that really surprised me was that there were so many different ways that it could happen. So we're all familiar with the ancient Egyptian ways of making mummies, but there are different cultures around the world that have also made mummies. But there are also people who do it today. In Papua New Guinea, they've been tried to smoked some of their ancestors to preserve them as mummies, which is quite unusual, I thought.
Now, as the editor, you're talking about how science is all about looking. You know, the closer we look at the things, the more we see, the more we can unpack and figure out what's really out there. As the editor of a Science and Nature magazine, how do you go about studying and figuring out the things that you're going to talk about each month?
Well, I talk to scientists and writers. I find out what they're up to and sort of plan out what will be the most exciting stories for each issue. What I find really exciting is there's just so much still left to be discovered. I think we often sort of think that the world has been discovered, every place has been visited, but like I say, the more you look, the more you discover. So we wrote in this issue about an expedition that was going to the Arctic, and to get to places that they've never been able to get to before on the Arctic ice, they're going to sail their ship in during summertime when there's less ice, and then get stuck in the ice over winter. So they'll be there the whole of the Arctic winter, and they'll be able to access parts of the ice that they've not visited before.
How will their ship be, though, when it thaws out again?
How will it be? Well, hopefully it will still be in one piece. I think, it's especially designed, these icebreaker ships, to be able to withstand the massive forces of the ice pressing against it from all sides.
You say that as the editor, you've discovered quite a lot while you've been doing this. What aside from ice-breaking ships, what are some of the other really exciting things that you've learned about the world around us when you've been editing the mag?
I love this story about the plant that has flowered in Cambridge Botanical Gardens, which has just flowered after 57 years. Now, the scientists there knew that it was a species of agave plant, but until it flowers, they can't tell what species it is. So it'd been growing there for 57 years, and then finally it suddenly produced this enormous spike that shot up over the course of a month or so and nearly shot through the roof of the greenhouse. And they were able to find out what species they'd been looking after, basically, for half a century or for more than half a century.
And eels are a lot in the news at the moment. So they found out that the most likely Loch Ness Monster is probably an eel. They've done that study recently.
That's right, yes.
And you talk about electric eels in the new issue. Can you touch on that just for just a sec?
Of course, yeah. There's I think electric eels were first discovered something like 250 years ago in the Amazon rainforest. And again, up to this time, they just thought there was one species. Now they've been looking really closely at the skulls of different eels that they found, and they realized that they're more than one species. There may be even as many as 3. So they've added one more name to the list of animals that we know about.
Because that's why it's so amazing doing things like this, isn't it? It's something as simple and it's probably dull for some people who aren't as interested in this kind of stuff as we are. But the fact that there's another 2 species of electric eel of all things is just kind of mind-blowing. Yeah. I noticed in the new edition you've got a big old spread about Greta Thunberg. Now, this is someone that we've talked about quite a lot on this show because we're interested in science, we're interested in the future of the world and what she's going to do. How did you approach talking about someone who is quite polarising in the news?
Yes, I know that she's been in the news quite a lot recently, and I think our readers they're smart and curious, they're excited by new ideas, and they ask us loads of questions too, because they basically want to make sense of the world. And, so we took it from that sort of angle. I mean, this is all about understanding our planet, right? And finding out what we can do to protect it. So I think, Greta, like her or love her, she's got some really interesting and important things to say. And I think, one of the most important things she's saying is that the science is already there, and we need our leaders to look at the science and start listening to the scientists. So I think that was sort of the angle we took.
I was at home the other day and I was speaking to my mum and dad, and my mum was talking about going to work, and she wasn't excited to go to work because some people that she work with tend to be a bit more on edge, I'd say, when there's a full moon. Now, I stopped. Are you being serious? And she said, oh yeah, this is a thing everyone knows, it's just no one really knows why it's the case. But in the new magazine, you've tried to figure it out. What is it with the full moon making people go crazy?
So there's this theory that the full moon makes everyone go a little bit nuts and do some daft things. And we're investigating in this part of the magazine, we investigate different mysteries of science and sometimes ask whether they're true or whether they're a load of rubbish. And so there's this theory that the full moon makes people act crazier, but there's more crime, there's more admissions into hospitals, so something's going on. So we've asked that question, and we've investigated deeply, and a lot of people from the scientific community are not very convinced that there's anything in this. But it's true that the full moon does affect the natural world. So you get owl monkeys in Argentina who use the extra light to help them find food. In fact, lots of animals are out and about in the light of the full moon, really.
Well, there's even some weird theories about the moon's gravity pulling stuff in your head around like it does the tide. I tell you what, if you're listening to this right now and you're going back to school in the next few days, ask your teacher what they think about how the full moon is affecting the class. I bet they've got a big old thought about that.
That's a really good idea, yeah.
Listen, Dan, thank you so much. Yeah, the new edition of Science and Nature from the Week Junior is out right now. Right, very quickly actually, Dan, before you go, I know you've got a whole load of competitions running. Tell us about those.
Oh, yeah, we're asking readers to show us their creativity and flair for science by designing an activity for our lab section of Science and Nature. It can be anything, really. It needs to be an activity but it has to be based around a theme of Christmas. So I don't know, maybe a cracker, how to build a cracker and the science behind what makes a cracker bang, or perhaps set up something with LED lights. The world's your oyster. But we've got some amazing prizes for the winner.
If you've got a Christmassy idea, something that you want done in an actual lab by proper scientists, let Dan know. You can find out all about it in the new Science and Nature magazine. Thank you so much, Dan.
Fantastic. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you, Dan.
It's time for this week's Dangerous Dan, and we've got a snake that we've not talked about yet, and I cannot believe this hasn't been featured on our list, because it's a properly deadly one. I'd like you to meet the saw-scaled viper. You'll find it across India and in the Middle East. It's the smallest member of the big four group of snakes. At their maximum, they grow to 80 centimetres long. They are grey, brown, red and an olive colour. They've got light patches across their back. Now, when they're about to attack, they'll curl up into a menacing coil, poking their head out, ready to pounce. And the most terrifying thing is their scales rub together when they're getting ready to attack, and it makes this low, menacing, vibrating hum. Then, quick as a flash, they'll lash out, they'll bite. Now, they don't have the most powerful venom. Don't get me wrong, it's still incredibly deadly. It's still more than enough in most cases. It's not the most powerful venom of all the snakes, but it's probably the most deadly one out there because they are responsible for the most snake bite deaths. Because there's a lot of them around in highly populated countries, so they've always got loads of chances to bite, which is terrifying. I mean, there we go, the saw-scale viper. It's even got a terrifying and hard-to-say name. In the next couple of weeks on the show, we've got 2 chemistry specials for you, where we'll learn all about chemistry, all about chemicals. We'll speak to proper experts about what they do in their jobs in the labs. We'll talk about the periodic table of all the elements as well. I thought before then, though, we'd give ourselves a bit of a chance. We'd get up to speed and learn more about chemistry with one of our brilliant series and features that we have on the show. And this is Kareena and her superhero alter ego K-Mystery, and they know all about it.
Kareena's Chemistry, with support from the Royal Society of Chemistry.
There I was, minding my own business, when what do you know? It turned out I have a superhero alter ego. Don't you just hate it when that happens? Who are you? You really look like me, which is a bit weird. Nice outfit, though. I'm K-Mystery, your superhero alter ego. Oh, thanks. I think the leggings really work with the cape, don't you? Definitely. Hey, do you have superpowers? Are they really cool ones? Can you turn peas into pound coins? Or even better, can you make me as clever as super smug Sasha with the perfect flicky hair? She thinks she's such a star. Well, the clue's in the name. K-Mystery? Chemistry? You got it! I'm here to take you on some amazing adventures into atoms and to create some crazy chemical concoctions and basically show you some really cool stuff. Okay. So where do we start? Well, why don't we see how much of a star Sasha really is? Whoa! Where are you taking me? We're going up a very long way! Oh my god, that is like totally an actual star. It's enormous. Shouldn't I be wearing sunglasses or something? That's the sun. Chemistry is all about matter, the stuff things are made of. What do you think the sun is made of? What do you think? A load of jam tarts? It's made of fire. Even I know that. What are all these tiny balls? Why are they zooming about? We're right in the centre of the sun, shrunk down to the size of an atom. And that's what you can see, the atoms. Atoms are the building blocks for molecules. They're like gangs of atoms. Billions of molecules of hydrogen are changing into helium, and that's recipe for a huge amount of heat. Hang on, duck! When a star has turned all of the hydrogen atoms into helium, it starts to change the helium atoms into carbon and oxygen atoms. Let's go somewhere to see more carbon atoms. It looks looks a bit different here. I can see the atoms are hanging out in different groups, and loads more carbon gangs in here. So, where are we? Is this another star?
You are going to love this.
I can see cells and blood rushing about. Oh my gosh, is that a heart? And yeah, I see daylight. We're flying out of a mouth. It's a human body.
Not just any human body.
Oh man, it's not Auntie Geeta, is it? No, it's
Super smug Sasha with the long flicky hair. Let's get back to normal size.
Wow, it's amazing that human beings have the same teeny tiny building blocks as you find in the sun.
It gets way cooler than that. A great thing about matter is that it's never destroyed. It just changes or is passed around. The carbon that makes up people is the exact same carbon that's made by stars. All the carbon on Earth, in fact, all the carbon in the universe is from the stars. So,
we're all made of stardust.
Got it. Not just super smug Sasha with the perfect flicky hair. You're as much of a star as she is.
Kareena!
That's Dad. Gotta go. Thanks for the wicked fun. Who knew me and chemistry would get on so well?
You wait till you see what else I can show you. Bye for now.
Kareena's Chemistry, with support from the Royal Society of Chemistry. Find out more at funkidslive.com.
Let's get some science in the news for you. The United States of America has begun the process of withdrawing from the Paris Agreement. This agreement was formed in 2015. It committed countries to keep rising global temperatures below 2 degrees C. But the US government is pulling out as President Donald Trump says, I'm not going to do the accent, says it's unfair economically on his fellow Americans. Also, data sent back by the two Voyager spacecraft have shed new light on the structure of the solar system. 42 years after they were first launched, they are still travelling. They're now more than 10 billion miles away from Earth, and the photos that they've sent back show the shape of the vast magnetic bubble that surrounds our sun. And finally, this is a sad story, so get ready. Hundreds of baby hedgehogs are being rescued after a wet summer in the UK has left them too light to hibernate. You see, because it was so wet in the UK over the summer, many of the hoglets died in the rain. So mums had a new litter, but much later on than usual. So the babies have had too little time to fatten up enough to survive the cold winter hibernation. Now, thankfully, the fantastic people at wildlife hospitals all over the country are rescuing them, but they've had double the amount that they've had in care this year than most others. And that is it for this week's Fun Kids Science Weekly. Remember, if you've got a science question that you need answered, something for me to figure out, let me know all about it. You can leave the question as a review over on Apple Podcasts. When you find the Fun Kids Science Weekly on there, there's a little box at the top. That's where you put your name so I can say hello. There's a place where you put stars as well. Drop 5. It really helps me see your question. At the very bottom, there's a comment box. That is where you leave your question. I will see it, and I'll sort out the answer for you. Also, while you're on Apple, it's one of the best places for you to hear all the science series that we do. You've heard some today. We've got loads more across the Fun Kids network as well. They're on Apple, they're on Google, Spotify, they're on the free Fun Kids app and at funkidslive.com. And Fun Kids, we are a children's radio station from the UK. You can listen to us all around the country on your DAB digital radio. If you're a little bit further afield, you can get us on the free Fun Kids app and at funkidslive.com.